Today, oil prices are $83 and some change, West Texas Intermediate pricing. The question has been and will be, are we headed to $40 faster than we get to $140? The truth of the matter is we are going to be in a higher price for crude oil longer and much higher than it is today and has been for the last decade. The one thing that's certain is that crude oil supply is not going to be limited to disruption just because of the Strait of Hormuz. What you have to remember is that this is a global macro industry. And you have major discoveries of new oil being found in places that wasn't even existing 10 or 15 years ago. You have the Vaca Muerta field down in Argentina. You have the Guyana field down there outside of Venezuela. You have Venezuela coming back online. You got new fields in Africa. And what really is taking place is that there's been kind of a consortium, as I might call it. It might have been a brotherhood that had been tied to the hip called OPEC. And OPEC, since it was formed back in the 60s and 70s, OPEC has been very clear. We're going to join at the hip to control global markets. Well, that has become fractioned since the UAE departed. That's been fractioned in that many have contested what Saudi Arabia considered to be the lead decision-making or the lead dog in the sled controlling global oil prices. But when you think about the Strait of Hormuz, you think, well, that's a significant blockage. That's a significant supply disruption. But the truth is, we're watching this whole thing play out over the last 5 months, and we're watching a certain number of ships get in. And if you're a nice player and you backhandle $1 million or $2 million to the Iranian regime, well, your boat gets through. If you don't pay and you irritate them or you're not part of what they believe to be the future of the Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, well, they shoot a missile at you or a drone at you or they disrupt your supply. How long can the United States government use military vessels to help escort vessels through the Strait of Hormuz and still tell the entire world oil's going to go down? The risk, the dollars, the amount of money cost to move a transport vessel through the Strait of Hormuz with 2 or 3 million barrels of oil has got to be $50 to $100 a barrel more than what the actual price is showing on NYMEX as far as West Texas Intermediate price. So if oil's at $83 a barrel today, it's probably costing $125 a barrel to get that oil through the Strait of Hormuz when you figure out the U.S. military is doing it. Now, when I say it's going to be a global disruption of supply, much longer and outside the bounds of the Strait of Hormuz, it's simply this. It's territorial. The market share of each producer that's been around for a long time is being fought for in ways we can't even imagine. If I've been making 3 million barrels a day and I'm Iran and I get attacked and my production drops by, let's say, 1.4 to 1.8 million barrels a day, let's say the numbers are statistically that we have 4.4 million barrels a day in Iran and we're consuming 2.5 million barrels a day. We're trying to export for profit 1.5 to 2 million barrels a day, and that becomes disrupted. And while I'm on my back in this bar fight with the United States of America, I'm looking to all the other countries that are stepping in quickly to try to take over my market share. Well, I'm going to have to put up with it for now, or I'm going to try my very best to disrupt other supply sources like Qatar, like Kuwait, like Saudi Arabia, by shooting missiles at them and disrupting their normal supply. I can assure you there is a room somewhere in Iran right now with logistical engineers determining where every barrel is going to move as long as the Strait of Hormuz is in current dire straits in terms of free transport and having a safe passage. And what they're determining is if Iran's supply continues to shrink and is limited because of prolonged war and a prolonged shutting in and a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, they're determining who is trying to grab their share. Who is going to try to step in and say, well, now I have contracts, I have customers, and I now control the 1 million barrels a day that Iran could not deliver because of the ongoing war with the United States. But when the war settles down, there's a change in the White House and policies change, which they will, and that starts coming back around, Iran is going to want their supply back and they're going to want their market share back. And there's two ways they can do it. They can just overproduce and make it up in pure volume. Not likely, because as much as they can make it up in volume, everybody else can make it up in volume. Now the price of oil sinks, and it sinks really low, $35, $40 a barrel. That's exactly what does not need to happen by any producer's stretch of the imagination. No one literally is going to be able to control the supply in such a way they can limit the price of crude oil for very long. Saudi Arabia found that out back in 2019, playing their little game with Russia. So what really is going to take place is they don't want to overproduce. What they want to do is be disruptive. They want to have a geopolitical fear across many different continents and many different producers and many different midstream or transportation mechanisms, whether it's onshore pipeline, underwater pipelines, whether it's vessels, waterborne vessels. What they're going to do, and I believe the terrorists, those that control the energy market in a way that allows them to have funding for their terrorist activities and supports their country, they're simply going to say, look, we've been beat up for a year and a half. The war's kind of settled down. President Trump is retired. He's no longer president. There's a new president in the White House. And today we don't have the same kind of pressure and constraints. So we're going to get to go back to producing more. But guess what? Now we're competing with other people and other countries and other producers who stepped in and got our supply. Well, we don't like that. We're not happy about that. So who do we need to pick on? How do we need to disrupt 2 to 5 million barrels a day that brings us back to pre-Iranian war levels and allows the price of oil to go to $95, $100, $200 a barrel? That is how the game is going to get played out. So I look at the commentary on the Strait of Hormuz. I look at the different onshore pipelines. I look at the Ukrainian war with Russia. And what it tells me, as of today at $83 a barrel, we're probably looking at a low end of $65 a barrel if and when this thing comes to a peaceful resolution, or at least a general stand down. That's probably months away. But on the flip side, the true economics tell me we're in this at a much higher price for much longer. Could we see over the next decade oil level off at $90 to $110 a barrel as the new step up in the flat basis for the price of crude oil in the world? I think absolutely that could be a price. 1985 when I started, $11 a barrel. Starting at the beginning of the 1990s, we're $17 to $25 a barrel. By the end of the 1990s, we're at $35 a barrel. Everyone swore it wouldn't go any higher. We get to 2008, we're at $145 a barrel. It then settled back to between $90 and $100 a barrel between 2009 and 2015. Then we dropped again to 55, we rose to 119, and now we're laying around $83. But in 4 decades, we've gone from $11 a barrel in 1985 to today's price of $83 a barrel. What it's really telling you is we're about to take the next step in the value of crude oil, and all the cards are being played out to clearly demonstrate the next regime is much higher for much longer.